Astro friends. This is Astrology AF, the show that talks everything astrology, above and below the totally real, not at all illusory sky. I'm Sunny, your host with over 30 years of chart reading experience.
And I'm Boots, your hostling with almost 30 years experience questioning innocent people to tears. We're here to walk with you through the twinkling starlight into the basic, the advanced, and the obscure.
Hi, and welcome to Astrology AF podcast. I'm Boots.
And I'm Sunny.
And we're here today to talk to y'all about the planet Jupiter. So Jupiter is the second to last planet in our series, one of the big guys out there. And he has a lot of significations of things that we tend to like. And so we call him the greater benefic.
Yeah, and interestingly, when you think about the astronomy, the science of the planets, and the astrology, there are so many little ways that they overlap. For example, Jupiter is a gas giant, okay? And Jupiter in astrology refers to expansion and growth. And you know, you can just envision gas expanding, right? Even though that may not be what happens with the planet. I don't know for sure, but the point is, it's, you know, the physical properties of the planet underlie the significance that astrologers gave it, even though there's no way they could have known that information at the time. So
Funny how that works out.
I love that. I love that. I love to geek out with that kind of thing, you know.
It does make it really cool when you know, the more scientific measurable things that we've only been able to really figure out in the last like 200 years roughly end up fitting in with this ancient understanding that we also have of things having to do with the planet. For instance, Jupiter in Hellenistic astrology is the ruler of the night fire triplicity. So in a night chart, Jupiter is the fire planet. And then, you know, thousands of years later, we go and we're able to get telescopes and spacecraft and stuff out there to see it, and oh hey, turns out it's pretty red, it's pretty fiery looking.
Yeah. And again, something that ancient astrologers in Greece would not have known,
Right.
you know.
They intuitively knew somehow.
It came through in some kind of transmission. I don't know. Anyway, so that's a really interesting little bit about Jupiter. Jupiter rules the signs Pisces and Sagittarius. Pisces is the nighttime sign of Jupiter, and Sagittarius is the daytime sign of Jupiter. And both are, you know, carry a lot of the significations of Jupiter itself, you know, happy-go-lucky, you know, things just seem to go well for these people, you know, which we always love. Sure, you know, that's great.
Of course. Being in a greater benefic position, like Sunny was saying, it tends to do a lot of the things that we love. And the things that Jupiter tends to represent are, like she was saying, largeness, expansiveness, things having to do with like luxury. Jupiter has also been associated in many places with royalty. And so the dignity and the beneficence and the more along the lines of like a good leader, a good monarch, right? Somebody who is there to help their people, who isn't there to just rule with an iron fist. Jupiter is a jolly giant out there, is kind of how I think of him. I picture him a lot as in the Muppets Christmas Carol, or what's the name of it? With
Yeah, the Christmas
Scrooge.
Carol. Yeah,
Christmas Carol.
right.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
that's the name of it.
you're
It's
right.
not December. I can't remember Christmas movie names. But in the Christmas Carol, they have the Ghost of Christmas Present, who's this giant bearded red guy, right? And in my mind, that's Jupiter's profile picture. That's his icon.
Mhm.
Is the Ghost of Christmas Present from Christmas Carol.
Yeah, I mean, and if you think about that, and I'm less clear on that particular scene in that particular movie, but I often reference the same story told in movie form, just as a live action, Christmas Carol movie. And when Scrooge walks into the room where the Ghost of Christmas Present is, there is a feast over here, and there are piles of presents over here. And, when you think about that, that's the piles of presents are generosity.
Mm.
You know, it's, oh, here's a present. Oh, and here's another one because I saw this and I knew you wanted it, and just overdo almost overdoing, you know.
Yeah.
Um, the feasting is, again, it's everything that feasting seems to mean for us. It's having sufficient amounts. It's enjoyment.
Mhm.
Those are all very Jupiterian things.
Yeah. Yeah, Jupiter is the one who uh like has the party together, is at the head of the table, is saying refill everyone's cups, bring everybody more hors d'oeuvres, and is the music good? We can make the music louder. All of that
Right,
kind of
right,
stuff is really just a great, generous, hospitable host,
right,
is a lot of the energy that I tend to think about with Jupiter.
right. Yeah. And so if you in your own birth chart, or if you encounter somebody with a birth chart, um, that had, well, we all have a birth chart, but if they have Jupiter in Pisces, in Sagittarius, or in Cancer, which is the exaltation of Jupiter, this is Jupiter being very free to enact all of those hostly duties or hostly energies. You
Hmm,
know, it's a very fortuitous position.
okay. Yeah. Um, is there, trying to think if there's anything outside of that that I tend to think of with Jupiter. I guess maybe some how would you um kind of outline the differences of a Sagittarian Jupiter energy versus a Piscean Jupiter energy? And then I really know very little about Jupiter in Cancer. My guess would be that it is very like home oriented.
Yeah, home family, that kind of thing. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Um, a Cancerian Jupiter versus a Piscean Jupiter. A Sagittarian is more outgoing. It's more oh, help me, yin, or it's more yin.
Yang.
Yang.
Yang. That would
Thank
be
you.
the yang. Yeah, okay,
It's the
so
yang version. It's the go. It's the a lot of times when I'm talking to people with strong Sagittarian energy, I'm talking to them about adventures.
hmm,
Like, maybe they are striking out and going somewhere. Just I don't know how this is going to work out, but it'll be, I talk very, very much with Jupiter, um, with the energy of the Fool tarot card,
hmm, okay.
where just about to walk off a cliff and completely blithe and unconcerned, you know, and you go, this is not going to work out well, but by golly, it always does. You know, it
So
always does.
a Jupiter key phrase could be, it'll be fine.
Yes, yes, we could definitely say that, you know. So and Jupiter Sagittarius is that. It's, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. In Pisces, it's more inner. It's more turned inward. Okay. It's an inner knowing that things are going to be fine
Hmm.
instead of a outward expression.
Okay.
Okay. It's a um it's receptiveness, like, okay, this is happening, and instead of um being upset by this, instead of fighting against this energetically, I'm just going to go with it. It'll be fine,
Okay.
you
So
know.
maybe like a little bit of a difference between the two being Jupiter and Sag might be saying, I'm gonna go do these things and it's gonna turn out fine. And then Jupiter and Pisces is things are going to happen around and to me, and I'm gonna be fine.
Right, right.
Okay. Okay. So then in Cancer, we just said that it's kind of going to be more home oriented. I would think that it's a little bit closer to that um Pisces energy because it's water. Um
Yeah, yeah.
how have you kind of seen that play out for people?
So it's I know somebody with Jupiter in Jupiter in Cancer, and they they not only have their family and who they are most concerned about, kind of the top of their list, all their family, but they tend to um, create family out of unrelated people,
Hmm, okay.
like kind of adopt them as their sister or brother, um,
Okay.
and think of them that way, you know. Um, and then as such, they advocate for them just the same way they would do for their natural born siblings,
Okay.
you know. Um,
Yeah.
so it's that kind of energy where it's like, I create a family, you know,
Okay. Yeah.
I add on to my family with
Okay.
with these people that, and they don't, it's not for everybody, they don't do it with everybody, you know
Yeah. Yeah.
although they tend to not be terribly exclusionary, you know
Mm, yeah.
like, oh, you're not my family, get away,
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
they're not like that, but some people they just take in,
Okay.
you know
Yeah, that's something that I think about with cancer is that um, like cancer is family, it tends to be family and like home oriented, but there's like a strong shell. There is a border around who those people are, right? And if you're
right.
in, you're in. If you're out, you're out. And so mixing Jupiter with that is let's push that boundary out a little
Oh,
bit.
we could
Let's
we
loosen
got
that up. Get in
more
here.
room,
We got space.
we got more room, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Jupiter in Cancer is kind of an adoptive sort of energy in that they're willing to add to the family.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, not like you said, not necessarily everybody, but it's a little bit more of an expansive definition of what family means.
Hmm. Hmm. Right.
Okay. Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then the fall, or the signs of detriment for Jupiter, are the Mercury ruled signs,
Hmm.
which I think we hit on in an earlier podcast. But it's Gemini and it's Virgo.
Hmm.
So um, Jupiter there is a little less free to move, a little less free to expand and grow the way that Jupiter likes to do,
Okay.
you know.
Right. Because it's those are Mercury's houses, and
Right.
Mercury's just a little guy. So it's trying to fit a giant into a gnome's house.
I mean,
Yeah.
maybe that is the rationale. I have no idea why. I have
that's
no
that's
idea
how
where
I'm
it came
thinking of
from.
it.
Okay. Okay. That works.
Because it works out. I think it was in the Mercury episode that we had talked about it. Because Mercury does not do well in Jupiterian signs.
Hmm.
Mercury has its detriments in Pisces and Sagittarius, and I think of that as, if Mercury is this, little guy with wings and stuff, he's going to have a rough time in the open ocean, and he's going to have a rough time if he's going through a forest fire. And then Jupiter isn't going to do great in this position of the bean counting Virgo energy. Jupiter is not about tiny details. Jupiter's about bigger picture stuff.
Right.
And then in Gemini being this just like kind of, I don't know, the difference between Gemini and Sagittarius that are directly opposite might be kind of more of having to do with that Jupiter might want to get bigger about individual things, like more study into a particular subject. Whereas Gemini has this energy of, I'm going to get a little bit of this, and then I'm going to get a little bit of this, and then I'm going to get a little bit of this, and just kind of like jumping around. And those are just sort of opposing energies.
Yeah, Jupiter is not nearly as flaky as Mercury is.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that like, terrible, but it's, Mercury is not good at sitting in one place for any length of time. It
Right.
likes to move. So, and when dealing with, for example, a course of study like you were just talking about, it's, it wants to once over everything,
Mm,
and hope we get it. But if
right.
we don't, it's okay. We'll move on. We'll get it sometime, you
Okay.
know.
Yeah. So, Mercury, or not Mercury, Jupiter, through the houses. If we have Jupiter showing up in the first house, what's that going to tell us about somebody?
So that tends to tell us, depending on sign, um, that tends to tell us that this person is going to show up with a Jupiterian type of personality. Okay. They're going to be expansive. They're going to be likely talkative, you know. Um, Regardless of sign, they are going to have this physique that is just big. And I don't mean fat. I just mean, they have broad shoulders, a big chest, just they're often very tall.
Hmm.
Um, just kind of that a little bit burly, a little bit big. Um, that's very classic Jupiter first house.
Okay. Yeah. And then does it tend to throw in those um also those characteristics of the, like you said, talkative, but um expansive interests maybe, or just somebody who's generous and has that beneficent sort of attitude about them?
Yeah, I think it depends on sign because
Hmm.
if we're talking Jupiter in Virgo in the first house, it's going to be less of that expansiveness, because Jupiter is already kind of hampered by the Virgo energy. Um,
Right.
but you know, there may be some things that, little just breakthrough things that come through that are like, oh, expansiveness, and it can be a little bit um take you by surprise.
Okay. Yeah.
you know but if Jupiter is in Cancer, if Jupiter is in Pisces, if in the first house, then it's, expansion city.
Okay. Yeah. And then Jupiter in the second house, having to do with our resources. Um, that I would imagine, I would have thought initially that would be like, great, lots of resources. That's awesome. And something that I had heard you bring up was that sometimes it can just be like being really optimistic about resources, kind of depending on sign.
Optimistic, or just in the sense of having enough,
Mm,
not having vast storehouses of gold coins piled up, you know, but having enough, you know.
okay.
I can go to Starbucks when I want to go to Starbucks. I can, I can buy a new outfit when I want to buy a new outfit. They're not rolling in it, which,
Yeah.
yeah, because initially when I first started reading for people, I was like, Jupiter in the second house is going to be, Scrooge McDuck, in the money.
Yeah.
And rarely is that true. It's more of a just an energy of, I have enough. I'm okay. I'm doing okay.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Sort of a mindset around it.
Right, right.
Okay. Okay. So then in third house, is gonna I know that from personal experience, Jupiter in three and like your local community, those third house topics, as well as communications and education, those sorts of things.
Yes.
And Jupiter there can be um, a little bit more of maybe what you would just first think off the bat of like lots of communications. I don't shut up and I have Jupiter in the third house. Um and then siblings. I've got two siblings and I see it in other people's charts. And that one has seemed to kind of depending on sign, but that has seemed to be fairly consistent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, regarding siblings, it can be about the number of siblings,
Mm,
and or it can also be about the relationships with the siblings.
mm,
So,
okay.
you may have a lot of siblings and you're close to them.
Mm,
You have supportive um, relationship with your siblings.
okay.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That fits with what I've seen so far and in my experience.
yeah, yeah.
And then Jupiter in the fourth house. Did you just grow up in a mansion if you have Jupiter in the fourth house?
I mean, you could. It also, it's also your family of origin. So this can go to that, where maybe you didn't grow up in a mansion, but you grew up in something that was enough,
Mm,
and your relationship with your parents, which is primarily, siblings. The siblings are the other people that grew up in our childhood home with us. And we've already covered them. We've already talked about them in the third house. So in the fourth, it's parents.
okay.
Um, and so Jupiter there can be, you have a good relationship with your parents. It can also, oddly, be like you have multiple of, like, two fathers,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
where other people just have one. you know?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that as being I had thought of that like maybe it means you've got an unusually large number of parents in general, but that could be either the parents being raised by like a community, being raised by either like all
Mhm.
these aunts and uncles, that sort of thing. It could be that your parents are polyamorous and you've got like multiple parental figures. There's like I could see a couple of different ways that that could play out.
Right, right. Yeah, or growing up in a community, like an ideological,
Yeah.
but you know, but you know, where everybody raises everybody else's kids,
Okay, a village sort of setup.
village sort of setup. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Nice. And then up in the fifth house of creativity and children, if you've got Jupiter there,
Hmm.
that could very well mean kids, lots of kids.
Could mean
It,
several kids. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it could also be just expansive creativity
Right.
as well.
Right. Or great enjoyment in sexuality, which
Yeah.
is a topic that I really haven't figured out how to broach with people. I don't want to be creepy. Uh,
Right, right.
but yeah, creativity, recreation, just joy, you know.
Yeah.
That's the fifth house is a great place to have Jupiter. If you look at your own chart or look at someone else's chart and you see Jupiter in the fifth, that's like the lottery, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I'd be really happy for anybody if I saw. I would be perfectly pleased with that placement myself, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure.
Oh heck yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Um,
then, oh,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Well, I was gonna take us into the sixth house. Are you ready?
Okay,
Okay,
right
yeah.
along.
So then in the um, sixth house refers to everyday tasks, kind of the routine stuff that we do. It refers to health of the physical body. It refers to small animals, okay, dogs, cats, that kind of thing. Pets are family members, you know.
Mm,
Um, Jupiter there tends to be regarding the health of the body tends to be fairly protective. So this is a good sign. It tends to mean it doesn't mean that things won't happen, but it means that we catch them and we heal them. We cure them, as opposed to them ending us. So
yeah,
so I still tell people, especially a lot of my clientele tend to be older, and I'm like, man, go to the doctor. Even
yeah,
though even though you have this loveliness in your sixth house, it's like that's a lot of times what that can be is doctor helps you live longer. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
um,
Good luck with physicians type of stuff.
what you have, or what you develop through life is something that is curable and fixable,
Okay. Yeah.
you know.
Mhm.
So, but we have to do the curing and the fixing.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then with the animals, it can be that you have lots of pets, perhaps.
Right. It could be. Yeah. And regarding everyday tasks, it can be just, how some people just really bitterly complain about their, oh, I had to do this today. And okay. um Jupiter there, you're not that way. You're like, oh, that was fine, it was great, I got it all done, and now I'm really happy that that it whatever you
Hmm.
know so
Okay. Yeah, just kind of being optimistic and a good attitude about those issues.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. And then in the seventh house, maybe you love big people. You got a love for the tall ones, for the thick ones.
Maybe, or maybe you just derive a lot of joy and pleasure from um your relationships,
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
that
I would imagine it means you're lucky with them, especially.
and that you're lucky with them, you're fortunate. um you know it can also mean multiples,
Mm,
just like we've seen in some of the other houses. So over the lifespan, it could mean, more than one marriage or more than one long-term partnership.
okay.
Um, it's not, it's not it's not doomed to that. That's not it doesn't have to be that. But it, sometimes it can show up like that.
Okay. Yeah. And then eighth house.
Yeah, eighth house. So eighth house is our resources that we have in common with others. And so this is a largesse, can be financial or can be other kinds of resources, but a largesse that comes from other people.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
And I know that like in eighth house also signifying death, Jupiter there, that can be the way that death symbolically fits into a chart is really interesting because it's not always like, oh, you're going to have a Jupiterian death or anything like that, or you're going to experience lots of death. It doesn't necessarily mean anything like that. It can be that maybe like you're really lucky around that and you don't experience a lot of death around you, or that when your time finally does come, it's good, it's a sweet release and it's you're ready for it. It's the kind of maybe an idealized, you're surrounded by your friends and family members, you're all saying I love you, and then you go back to the big love and rejoin with the light, or however it happens. um that it can be it can fit in with that as well, and I would imagine that as with most other things, it is um good place to have Jupiter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Although, to be honest, there's other places I would rather have Jupiter
Of course. uh,
if I had to pick.
right. I'm not just gonna deliberately stick him in 6, 8, or 12, you know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So ninth house Jupiter, how do you see ninth house Jupiter?
So ninth house is all kinds of learning topics. Ninth house is spirituality, which involves learning a new set of tenets of rules. Maybe it's the Ten Commandments or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, but so it's spirituality, it's law, it's travel, long distance travel, which the ancients talked about um, travel over water, but they lived in ancient Greece. They lived
Mhm.
they lived in what is now known as Greece, not ancient Greece. And that was not a very far distance, and so I haven't figured out if the ancient astrologers lived in Kansas, how how ninth house would be different, because I have a feeling it would, you know
Right. Yeah.
because you can try you can start in one place and go a long time and a long way, um, and travel many multiples of how far you would be traveling in Greece once to get over water.
Yeah.
And yet, is that still a third house topic, which is just your local area? um
Right.
I have trouble with that, but anyway, that was a side
It's
topic.
I think that that's very pertinent though, and it comes up fairly often as we're going through the houses with the planets, because it is sort of vague. It's sort of vague. I don't really have to go over water to get much of anywhere. Um, and so I have heard it talked about as well as Jupiter being like special, or not Jupiter, ninth house being special trips.
Hmm.
And then third house is routine trips. That's just going to work every day.
Oh,
And then
I like
ninth
that.
house is like vacation, or you're going on a spiritual pilgrimage. Or you're going out and doing something that you don't typically do.
I like that. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Good way to differentiate that.
I thought that it was helpful for clearing that up a little bit because it does confuse me as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then
Oh, go ahead.
Just last note on ninth, that Jupiter tends to be associated with like the equivalent of clergy, like priests or shamans, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
And ninth house also is spirituality. It's reaching out towards God. And so Jupiter in the ninth house, I have heard sometimes can show up literally as somebody being a spiritual leader.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Um, it can also be just deriving a great deal of it, deriving so much, a lot of pleasure from your spiritual practice
Mm,
or from
yeah.
your travel or for, um, it's let's see what else, you know, good fortune and many trips,
Mm,
special trips, you know,
okay.
um, traveling, especially traveling long distances, you know.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So
All right. Well, 10th house is going to be Jupiter showing up as being really, usually really helpful to your career, to your
right,
fame, what you're known for, your kind of mundane descriptors.
right,
And depending on what sign it falls in, it can be that can literally be working in like civics, being in a government position.
uh, uh-huh,
It can be just being in a leadership position in general, filling out that Jupiterian head of house role in a work position.
right, right. Yeah, and just general good fortune around these things, you know, tending to make good decisions in
Mm,
the realm of career, whether it's, um, in my current role or deciding to um, go to a different role, and having a really fortunate situation there,
okay, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Um, 11th house.
11th house, and this is my placement. 11th house is tends to be a good fortune in terms of people that they know, that they
Mm,
meet, that they it's not this quite the same as the turn them into family designation, although it can be. But that people that you get to know are helpful and supportive and loving and you know all those good things.
okay, yeah. And I think that takes us to 12th house.
It does take us to 12th house. So 12th house is a lot of things. 12th house is the subconscious, the things that I always talk about things that we don't see coming.
Mm,
They seem to be coming out of left field to us. Other people are like, oh man, I could see that from a mile away. You know,
hmm.
why did you tell me? um, it's it opposes the health of the body, and so I tend to put health of the mind into the 12th house. Um,
Yeah.
it 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 references things like the ways that we retreat, the
Mm,
ways that we kind of imprisonment shows up in the 12th house. And that could be literal, going to the pokey, or that could be where I sequester myself off and you know don't let anybody else in. that's
okay,
that's
yeah.
that's a form of imprisonment as well, you know
Yeah. So mixing in Jupiterian qualities with those things where it's either like the retreat and the hiding or the mental health, um, that could be either, it could be kind of helpful, it could be kind of you're turning Jupiter on its head and using him in the least helpful ways possible, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you could go really big on self-undoing.
you could.
Hmm.
Definitely could. Yeah. I tend to think that Jupiter is less helpful. This is sort of like in the eighth and in the sixth, where it's like, it's less helpful. It can be helpful in very specific targeted ways, but it's not this, global um, supportive energy.
Mm,
It's, because Jupiter can also be things expanding. So, if there's issues with my mental health, Jupiter there can make that bigger, make that
mm,
feel bigger, you know.
yeah.
For me. Um, so it because the 12th is a great house for um, Saturn.
Mm,
It's a not really great house for Jupiter,
right.
you know, because it just, it's not how Jupiter runs, not how Jupiter
Right.
rolls.
You don't really, it's not always ideal to have Jupiter kind of tucked away in a difficult to operate space.
Right,
Um, but I'd rather have, I don't know, Jupiter there. It's always a mixed bag. If you're somebody who has Jupiter in the 12th house, you might not experience any of the stuff that we're talking about.
right.
Or you
True.
could have Jupiter there and you're sitting here thinking like, man, you don't know the half of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so we're clear when I'm talking to a client, I don't say things like, this is a terrible place to have this planet,
Right.
because that's where it is. And we go, and so I'm always looking for, how can I support this person, not how can I tear them down and make them feel terrible about their birth chart. You know?
Right. Because there's all of those the mitigating factors too, right?
Right,
You can
right,
have Jupiter, maybe Jupiter's in the 12th house in Virgo, but it's getting hit by rays and beams from other planets that are well placed. And
right,
maybe you have a day chart, and so Jupiter's in its sect as well. And so he's a little bit happier to be there.
right.
All of these other things that can really boost up something that might otherwise appear right off the bat to be an
Mm,
um, might
mm,
actually turn out to be a bit of a boon to you.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and so people with Jupiter in the 12th, I'm talking to them about taking care of their mental health, paying attention to the little clues that are given. Oh, hello, kitty. Paying attention to those little clues, because those can help us see the things that are coming from left field, and just commending journaling and help people with those issues.
Well, that's the 12 of them, and we've gotten through exaltations and detriments and rulerships and falls, and I think we've talked. Um, the only part that I can think of that we haven't gone over is my little list of more horary in oriented significations. I can go over that real quick.
Sure, do it.
So Jupiter is said to be hot, moist, diurnal or daytime, masculine or yang energy, things that are big, expansive or expanding, the luxurious, religions, the spiritual, generosity. Jupiter can indicate laxatives or loosening of things, untying things. Fruit trees, rich people, aristocrats, judges, priests, feasting, teachers, the spiritual teachers, rain, mercy, big animals, gentle animals, helpful animals. And then for the health in the body, it represents the left ear, the lungs, the liver, blood, and reproductive fluids.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else you want to throw in there? I know that currently Jupiter is in the sign of Taurus. You got any notes on Jupiter and Taurus for us?
Yeah, so Jupiter in Taurus is talking about Taurus is all about among other things, but it's like food, luxury, and not gold-plated luxury, but luxury like, oh, this blanket is so perfect. I love this blanket so much. And so Jupiter there is increasing our just the way that we're excited about these things.
Okay,
It
yeah.
also increases the ability to experiment, like with food. Chocolate chip cookie was first released under Jupiter and Taurus.
No way. Oh, that's awesome.
People having people experiment with things and try new things out, see what comes about. um, Jupiter, the complicating factor for us this time around is that Jupiter is also co-present with Uranus. Jupiter and Uranus are actually going to be in a conjunction not too long from now, which will be so Uranus is the energy of revolution. It's the energy of sudden change. And I always tell people that Uranus is really value neutral in terms of, are you going to like the change? You
Yeah,
know, it's
yeah,
like we're going to change things and you may like it, and that's good. And if you don't like it, well, that's good. I mean, it's just whatever. It is what it is.
yeah.
So Jupiter and Uranus together are talking, and especially you can then drag in Taurus into
Mhm.
this sudden change, sudden shifts. I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't know that it's a different configuration or a different part of the chart that talks about this. But that video with the Key Bridge in
Mm.
Baltimore and the way
Yeah.
it just came down. That's a very Uranian energy. It's more what's going on in Pisces than what's going on in Taurus. But it's a good example of what I'm talking about with Uranus. That bridge stood for 20 years,
Hmm.
and it was 5 seconds, and the whole thing was down. You
Yeah.
know, so that's very Uranian.
Okay. And then Jupiter having a little bit to do, at least, with travel over water,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
bridge. Um, and what's coming to mind for me is that in general, hopefully, the Jupiter Uranus conjunction will be more positive, more pleasant,
Yes. Yeah.
than not, at least in the end results. It might not be great while it's happening, but as it's happening in a Venus ruled sign
Mm-hmm.
and it is Jupiter, both benefics, I would like to think that it's going to tend to work out a little bit better for us than work against us.
Right, right. Yeah, and like I said, the bridge bit is a different part of the chart. It's the Pisces,
Okay, yeah.
because of the water.
Mm,
Is Taurus is not, travel over water. You
yeah.
know,
Torres is staying in my field munching grass.
Taurus is standing in the field munching grass, right? Uranus and Jupiter are going to combine to kind of, change some things around that.
Yeah,
You know, now, does that mean that happens to every individual on the planet? No, it does not.
right.
Some of us will just sit and watch and go, wow, that was really interesting. And other people will have the experience of having that happen a little more closely. Jupiter is at 16 degrees Taurus and Uranus is at 20. So it's going to be a little while.
Okay. But it's in orb.
It's in orb already. Yeah.
She's a coming,
Yep.
but I'll
Yeah.
be looking forward to it.
Okay.
All right. Well, that is all that I have got on the planet of Jupiter. Is there anything else that you wanted to throw in there, Sonny?
Have fun
Well,
with
thank
Jupiter.
Yeah. Y'all go out and enjoy your Jupiters now, you hear? And thanks so much for tuning in to Astrology AF. I have been Boots,
And I still am Sunny.
and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks so much for being here with us today. To keep getting more astrology with Sunny and Boots, like and subscribe.
To talk with Sunny in an astrological consultation, visit sunnysastrology.com to schedule an appointment. To reach Sunny and Boots about the show, email us at contact@astrologyafpodcast.com. Links in the description.